Hey everybody, we're here for video number 2. This one follows the same direction as the last one, which was the state. This particular video is about regimes and what is the difference between a regime and a state. So, without further ado, this is the Comparative Government Quick Review number 2, regime. So a regime are fundamental rules and norms of are known as fundamental rules and norms of politics. But when we discuss regimes, more often than not, we're talking about something a little bit more specific, which are the long-term goals that guide the state with regard to individual freedom, collective equality, where power should reside, and how power should be used. So when we are in a democratic country, for instance, the change from President Trump to President Biden was not a regime change. It's the same type of regime because the Constitution remains constant and the form of government remains constant. So the long-term goals that guide the state with regard to individual freedom and collective equality, where power should reside, and how power should be used all remained constant. So it was just a shift and a change in government, not a change in regime. But when we learn about Nigeria several times had military coups follow democratically elected leaders. And when the military coup would come into when the military would come into power, the military leader as a result of a coup, that would constitute a regime change because it changed the form of government from one led by a democratically elected leader to one that is non-democratic. So the example that you can use for a regime change would be a democratic government to a non-democratic government, because those two fundamentally have differences about what collective equality looks like, what individual freedom looks like, where power should reside, and how power should be used. So all in all, a regime is a discussion of fundamentals, rules, and norms of politics that constitute a form of government, and specifically long-term goals that guide that state with regard to its commonly held values. So when we talk about regime, that's what we mean. If you all remember from your European history days, Louis XIV used to describe himself as a regime. He would say, I am the state. And oftentimes when you have charismatic leaders who have concentrated power in the hands of one person in a non-democratic state, a change from one leader to the next can constitute a regime change because so much of what constitutes the beliefs of that political system are based in just the opinions of one individual. It would be hard, for instance, to see the replacement of Vladimir Putin in Russia as anything other than a regime change, no matter the direction that it heads, because how personally defined the state is according to his whims. So that's it for today. That's what a regime is, and we'll be back tomorrow with government.